What's up everyone, and welcome back to Top 5 Central. Today we're looking at 5 of the deadliest and most destructive hurricanes of all time. Now with Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma destroying a huge part of the US, we thought it'd be a really good idea to raise awareness for just how deadly hurricanes actually are and review some history about them. With that said, leave a like if you do go on to enjoy the video, and subscribe so you stay up to date whenever we post. Also, if you've ever been affected by a hurricane, I want you to comment what state and hurricane it was to see which one affected our subscribers the most. But anyways, let's get right into the video. Number 5. Hurricane Katrina. So Hurricane Katrina was one of the 5 deadliest hurricanes in the history of the United States, not to mention the costliest natural disaster ever, and looking at the details of what happened, it's not difficult to figure out why. In August of 2005, a tropical wave in the Bahamas met with what we now call Tropical Depression 10, and that interaction quickly turned into a storm. Now that storm was named Katrina, where it headed towards Florida and became a hurricane just 2 hours before hitting land, strengthening into a Category 5 as it traveled the Gulf of Mexico. Now it did eventually weaken to a Category 3, but it still caused severe damage across Florida and Texas, even flattening houses and pushing boats inland in Mississippi. As for New Orleans, over 80% of the city and surrounding areas flooded, bringing the total death toll to 1,245 people. It's currently known as one of the deadliest hurricanes of our current generation, and chances are you more than likely know someone who was affected by it.
Katrina grows into a Category 4 hurricane. A few hours later, it reaches Category 5, the highest possible rating. Winds exceed 175 miles an hour. All residents in New Orleans are ordered to evacuate. For those without the means to leave, the city sets up shelters. Many locals simply hunker down in their homes and prepare to weather the storm. As dawn breaks, Katrina's wind speeds slow back down to a Category 4 hurricane. It makes landfall at 6 a.m., 60 miles southeast of New Orleans. Its 140-mile-an-hour winds pummel the coasts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. The eye of the storm moves just...
Number 4. Hurricane Audrey. Now most people watching this probably haven't even heard of Hurricane Audrey, because by now it almost seems like ancient history, but the truth is at the time it had some pretty devastating consequences. So starting as just another storm in the Gulf of Mexico, it quickly got stronger, and by June 27, 1957, it was reclassified as a major hurricane. Now with wind speeds of over 125 miles per hour, it hit the coast of Louisiana and completely ravaged the area before losing most of its energy. Now that doesn't sound too bad, but during the 2 days it was active, Audrey caused massive damage, creating 2 separate tornadoes and taking around 400 lives. It also caused massive flooding, which cost Louisiana and Texas $147 million worth of damage, and went down in history as one of the deadliest tropical storms and hurricanes to ever hit the Midwest.
Lost their lives, many of them swept into the Gulf of Mexico by the backwash of tidal waves. The most tragic news story of recent months is one of horror and destruction. With thousands homeless and facing a grim future, Cameron was hardest hit with millions in property damage. But Audrey also cut a swath of destruction inland through the US and on into Canada.
Number 3. Hurricane Mitch. Hurricane Mitch is the second deadliest Atlantic hurricane on record, and even though it's since dropped to 7th, it's one of the most dangerous storms the world has ever had to deal with. Beginning in 1998, it was encouraged by the unusually warm air in the Caribbean Sea and grew quickly into a Category 5 hurricane. It hit Honduras and then drifted through Central America before it reformed and hit Florida as a strong tropical storm. Now, it was only a minor hurricane when it hit Honduras, but the amount of rain it unleashed was catastrophic, as unofficial reports put the numbers at up to 75 inches of rain. I'm not even joking, the flooding killed nearly 11,000 people, and at the end of the year just as many were missing, as the destruction of homes and buildings made them almost impossible to find.
By the evening of the 29th of October, Mitch had already reached the northern coast.
In this case, the destructive power now is contained in the very, very heavy rains that are being released as the circulation interacts with a very mountainous landmass here, Honduras and Nicaragua down here, and it draws in moisture both from the Pacific Ocean and from the Caribbean Sea, from both sides, and the circulation is so large that it's very slow to spin down.
Mitch was so big that while its center covered the land, Its spinning edges sucked up vast amounts of water vapor from the Pacific and the Caribbean. It then poured it straight back down again onto the land.
And so the real disaster is really yet to come in terms of the mudslides and the very great catastrophes that occur as a result of several feet of water being deposited over the mountainous terrain here.
Number 2, Hurricane Irma. Now, Hurricane Irma is still causing massive problems for people all over the world, and details are changing all the time, so it's pretty difficult to get completely accurate numbers. With that said, most experts agree that it's the most intense Atlantic hurricane to be seen in over a decade, and is the most dangerous one to hit America since Katrina. So yeah, starting from a tropical wave in the Cape Verde Islands, Irma became a Category 2 hurricane in just 24 hours, and increased to a Category 5 in just a few more days. At its fastest, it had wind speeds of over 185 miles per hour, and even though it's now weakening, it still is causing chaos everywhere from Cuba to Florida to most of the southeast of the United States. So far, estimates say about 29 people have died from all over the world, and more are being evacuated every single day. With that said, at the top of the description you can find a little donation link, so if you guys want to support or give some relief to any of the victims affected by Hurricane Irma, you can do it there.
But we're still hours out. This place is in a state of civil emergency right now. That means you're supposed to stay inside your house. That's exactly what people have been doing. More than 20,000 people in shelters. A lot of them had a tough time getting there, but they are in there now and watching this as it comes in waves. Sometimes pretty intense here.
Okay, here's our honorable mention. Now, even if you haven't heard of the Galveston hurricane, you might have heard it by another name, as in Texas, it's still called the Great Storm of 1900. It was only a Category 4 storm, making it a major hurricane, but not the biggest in history, but it is at the minute still the deadliest hurricane the US has ever had to deal with. Basically, the storm is said to have killed 12,000 people, because the towns that were affected, the worst just couldn't prepare in time. Now, we've done a bit of research into this one, and discovered that the hurricane started in West Africa and emerged out of the Florida Straits, but forecasts had told the people of Texas that they'd probably be fine. And so yeah, they really weren't given that much of a heads up until the hurricane was almost right on top of them, when it was pretty much way too late to do anything about it. Obviously, the storm swept in and destroyed everything, including over 3,600 homes and taking so many lives.
4 years ago this week, the worst natural disaster ever to strike this country hit the Texas coast. 6,000 people were killed on Galveston Island in the Great Storm of 1900. Our Charles Hadlock reports tonight some of those who died are now being remembered.
And he had recollections of being in the cold water, but those were very vague. And he says the real thing that he remembers most was waking up in a tree.
Number 1, the Hurricane of 1780. Now this is another one that was way before anyone's time, but that doesn't mean the damage it caused wasn't crazy. The Great Hurricane of 1780 struck right in the middle of the American Revolution, so it caused so many British and French troops to lose their lives, as well as the people living in the areas where it hit. Overall, the death toll is estimated to be between 20 and 22,000 people, making it the deadliest Atlantic hurricane ever recorded. Historians believe the storm first struck Barbados, which already had wind speeds of up to 200 miles an hour, and ripped through Martinique, St. Lucia, and St. Eustatius, causing thousands of deaths on each island. It also passed over Puerto Rico and caused heavy damages on the coastlines, until it finally lost power just southeast of Canada. And there's our video on the top 5 most destructive hurricanes of all time. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like down below and subscribe so you see whenever I upload a video. Also, if you have your own top 5 or top 10 idea, feel free to search me handy form in the description to submit it. With that said, thank you all so much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.